Welcome into Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara, joined by the editor-in-chief of GoodHooks.com, Rob Mosley. We're here to recap Oregon's defeat against Colorado. It was a rough one, a 3-point loss to the Buffaloes at Autzen Stadium. It drops the Ducks' record overall to 2-2, but more importantly, they start Pac-12 play with a loss for the second straight year. Last year they were able to rebound, so I think that there's this feeling that a lot of Oregon fans have, and even some of us here, that cover the team so closely, you're worried. You look at the standings. In the past, just a year ago, they were able to turn things around. I think that this is a different team, different players. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but right now, it's a tough thing for the Ducks to go through. They score 38 points. Typically, you score 38 points in a football game, you're going to win.
Yeah, I think this is a typical Oregon offense. It hasn't been perfect. Ducks had the ball last, against Nebraska essentially, and had a chance to win against Colorado with the ball, but and didn't get it done in either case. But either place, you score 30 whatever points in both of those games, you expect to win. This offense is still top 10 in the country in yards per play, top 10 in rushing, up there in scoring offense like always. But the margin for error is just so small because you've got a defense that's really young, based on some recruiting classes 2012, 2013 that the contributions just aren't there that you would have hoped by this point. And so there's a lot of youth, and then a new system. Brady Hoke, still tinkering with personnel, working with personnel groups to see what works best. And so while those guys get those things figured out, it's all on the offense, it feels like sometimes. And again, the margin for error is so slim. When they're not perfect, you get what you see the last couple weeks.
Well, so far, through the first 3 weeks of the season anyway, Oregon did a really good job in the second quarter. They'd kind of get off to a slower start, and then the offense would really start humming, and did a great job, going into halftime. Not really the case in this particular game. However, they came out on the other side of halftime and had their best third quarter of the year. So it seems like there are signs all over the place, and there's encouraging signs at that. But it's a puzzle that is missing some pieces or has yet to be put together properly.
Yeah, it's sort of like you plug one hole and then something else pops up, and you feel like you got to address that. Everything's magnified in defeat, obviously, but I think the slow starts have been a consistent thing offensively, just taking some time to get rhythm. Obviously would have been nice to have Royce Freeman, Farrell Brown, a couple key pieces offensively this past week. But again, offensively, you score that many points, you got to get the job done. The defense did respond well in the second half too. Got some 3-and-outs, got a couple big plays. Troy Dye, Brendan Schooler. Some true freshmen, making some big plays when they needed them most. But yeah, it's the uncertainty that's different. You sort of always felt like you knew what to expect from Oregon football, and then you drop a couple games. They're only by 3 points each. So hey, that doesn't reflect that poorly. Nebraska's a team on the rise. Colorado's a team on the rise. 2 months from now, we might look back on those games and go, hey, those teams were 8-9 win teams, and those weren't bad losses. On the other hand, who knows what to expect? You're going into Washington State and then Washington, a couple games that are winnable, but also, it's not like the Ducks are going to be, big favorites if at all. So it's the question mark, the uncertainty that leads to some anxious moments. It's fun, but it's also, I understand why fans would be on edge a little bit too.
Some positives out of this one. You talked about Troy Dye and Brendan Schooler with some big defensive plays, both true freshmen, both guys that have impressed so far. I think you and I both had this conversation during practice during the week that Schooler was going to have a big game. You just got the sense that he's getting more and more comfortable. He had the one interception and returned it to midfield. He had another play where he nearly got one where he covered like 30 yards in what seemed like just an instant to be the second guy there on a pass attempt into the end zone by the Buffaloes. So definitely those two guys, bright spots on defense. And offense, as you mentioned, the Ducks continue to pile up yards. They continue to run the ball effectively. Tony Brooks-James, with his second career 100-yard game in this one, averaged over 8 yards a carry. Another touchdown for him. Kenai Benoit got off to kind of a slow start, but was productive in the second half, as he always seems to be. And then Taj Griffin had a touchdown in this one, too. They still miss Royce, though, because he's just a different style back. And that last drive, he would have been a guy that you probably, you ride that horse as long as you can, and he wasn't available.
I think just like that series late in the first half at Nebraska, where Royce might have made a difference helping move the chains and might have impacted play calling a little bit. I think you can wonder if in the last series against Colorado, when you have that 1st and 7, you call the fade, which works all the time in practice, but Dakota just doesn't get enough on it. But yeah, if you've got Royce there in the backfield, maybe you think a little differently. He's by far the most physical of the 4. The big plays are there. The Ducks have 6 rushes of 40 yards or longer this season. That's the most in the country, and that's by 4 different guys. Royce, Taj, Tony, Kanai each have one of those. I can't think that's something that's happened a lot in college football in many, many years, to have 4 different backs with a 40-yard plus carry, just 4 games into the season. But Royce is by far the most physical, and so yeah, you wonder if that might have changed things up.
Yeah, that's the type of stat you would expect to see from a true option team.
Right.
But back to Prukop, I think that it's I feel terrible that this game for him is kind of defined by that last play, because up until that point, he's 22 of 31 for the game, 293 yards, had the 2 touchdowns to Carrington. He didn't run the ball as much as we saw him at Nebraska, but he made some big plays to put them in position. The pass to Charles Nelson, which Charles Nelson made a great play on for a huge first down, identifying Carrington a couple times in single coverage, and got a pass interference call when Darren was wide open and the DB had to come in, and that was on the final drive as well. So I think
throw to Dwayne Sanford to set up the last
absolutely
play.
He really started to get into a rhythm, and it's 2 plays these last 2 weeks. You flip those, and this guy's the next Marcus.
He's not making excuses for himself. He said after the game, people, you always say it doesn't come down to one play. It's the breadth of the game. But for him, it did come down to that one play, and he was owning it after the game. I mean, his demeanor in the locker room, he was wearing it. There was a lot of guys that were really down, and I think he needed some people to come over and help pick him up and lift him up, and because he's got to rebound from that. He can't let that one throw define him going forward. Because I think at Nebraska, you could argue statistically he was a little better than Armstrong, but Armstrong made the big plays down the stretch when it mattered. The kid from Colorado had a heck of a game. On one hand, you got to tip your cap to him, and some of those throws into the end zone, he's going to be a really good player. He's a scary proposition going forward. But again, Dakota, I think, statistically held his own, but the other kid made 1 or 2 more plays, and so again, Dakota's got to. He's a guy who can make those plays, and he's got to lift himself back up and gather himself, because he is the best quarterback on this team. There's no doubt about that. Mark Helfrich said it Sunday. From having watched practice, I know there's a lot of enthusiasm about Justin Herbert, and he's encouraging based on where he's at in his career. But he's not so encouraging that you wouldn't be worried if he wouldn't play like a true freshman if you threw him in there. He'd have his learning curve would be steep if you put him in a game right now.
Well, Dakota Prukop, 4 complete games for him. He has 1 turnover.
Yeah, it
happened on the last play against Colorado, an unfortunate ending. But you're gonna. Over the course of the season, if you tell me your quarterback's going to, be on pace to turn the ball over 3 times in a year, you're going to take that. So, I feel bad for him. I think he'll bounce back. He definitely, he's a competitive guy, and if anything, this I think is just going to make him even more so this week in preparation for Washington State. That's going to be a big one. We know it's now a 6:30 kickoff on Pac-12 Network, as the Ducks travel to Pullman. The last time up there was a little hairy. Marcus Mariota was nearly perfect and had to be for Oregon to win. So not an easy place to play, Martin Stadium. We'll be here to preview that one later in the week. Until then, if you have questions for Rob or I, you can reach us on Twitter. I'm at McNamaraUO. He is at Duck Football. Until next time, we'll see you.